So, yeah, I'm Daniel. Normally I'm a professor for software engineering in Bingen am Rhein. Yeah, so it was not so far from here. Yeah, normally the Rhine looks rather like this, but not these days, as you might know. Anyways, I have a few questions for you first. Do we have any animal farmers in the audience? One. Wow, that was one more than I expected. Do we have somebody who knows somebody who has an animal farm? Okay, that's a bit more. Okay, then some other questions. I suppose most of you guys probably have a smartphone. So who has a smartphone, their main smartphone running Android? Okay, iOS. Okay, almost a few. And some Linux Mobile. Also, 2, 3 people. Nice. So maybe from these 2 or 3 people, is there somebody who can argue, maybe in 2 sentences, why using Android and iOS is maybe not so sustainable? Maybe some of the Android guys also know that. Any volunteers? Yeah? Sorry, the infrastructure? Sorry, I didn't get that. Yeah.
Over time, the infrastructure and the platform is being locked down even more by Google and Apple, as we see with Android right now.
Yeah, so the infrastructure is yeah, in somebody else's control. Yeah, they try to enforce you to use certain services. They try to limit the lifetime of the devices that you have. They stop providing updates and so on. Yeah, so that brings me to the goals or objectives here of this presentation. So first, I hope that after the talk you can name a few solution approaches for the development of digitally sovereign apps and classify approaches for cross-platform development to support more than one platform. Then you have a rough idea about progressive web apps. Who knows progressive web apps already? A few, okay. Then the next is that you have a rough idea about practical problems with goat farmers. Yeah, what kind of problems do they face? And finally, and that's of course my main objective, is that you're so impressed by our app DigiZiege that you also infect others with your enthusiasm, especially those of you who maybe know some farmers that have goats or that have a farm themselves. So first I want to start with sustainable app development. And I think we all agree that building apps for just one platform is maybe not the best idea. Yeah, especially if yeah, the policies of this platform change. Yeah, and also it's duplicated effort because you don't want to build the same things twice or 3 times or 4 times, but ideally once. Yeah, and one approach towards this is cross-platform development. And here's a taxonomy by Maichak and others, where yeah, app development is divided into native and cross-platform, as you can see here. And here cross-platform is then also divided into runtime-based approaches and generative approaches. So the generative approaches, for instance, are here from this class of model-driven approaches. So you don't really write the app, but you write some model, and then this model is used to generate the app for platform A, or for platform B, or for platform C. And we have the transpiling approaches. So as the name says, you write the app for one platform, and then you transpile it into an app for the other platform. Yeah, especially with AI, I think you can do a lot there. Of course, the question is how well the result is. But that's another class of approaches. And then we have the runtime-based approaches, where you basically think a bit about, okay, is there a runtime that we can have on that platform? Just like on the desktop, you, for instance, have something like Java, a runtime environment, and then you don't really write your app for the operating system, but you write it for the runtime, and then, you know, the idea of write once, run anywhere, or as we call it, write once, test everywhere. But yeah, these are approaches that belong to this class, and this is also the class that we're going to take a closer look here. Now, the web as an intersection, so the lowest common denominator for most platforms is that you can run a web browser there, yeah, even on some, I don't know, smart TVs or whatever. And if you look at some web apps, then most of them, at least the good ones, they are responsive and portable anyway. So they are not really device specific and, oh yeah, please only work in this browser with this screen resolution and so on, but they should run on each browser. Unfortunately, they have some disadvantages when you compare them with native apps that you run on your mobile device. So no native look and feel. Yeah, especially if you're using, I don't know, Linux, and then you go to a web app that looks a bit, tries to mimic iOS, and then you feel like, oh, what's that? Yeah. Then you have limited access to local resources, like if you want to access Bluetooth, for instance, or the camera, or location, or other sensors. Often you have long load times, especially the first time that you run the app. And also a lot of traffic is run there. So if you live in Germany and you're enjoying the great mobile network at some train stations, for instance, then it may be a problem to run the apps. Also, performance is maybe not as good as for native apps. And obviously, you can't use them offline. Yeah? So you always need a data connection. Now, there are various approaches that try to remedy the disadvantages, like progressive web apps, which I will introduce, or WebAssembly. And yeah, we here want to focus on progressive web apps because the DigiZiege app, which I'm going to show next, is using progressive web apps. So what are progressive web apps? The idea is simple. It's basically to have apps that you can also, web apps that you can also install locally to some degree. And a big advantage is that you can try it on the web, and if you like it, you install it. Then you have it on your device. While with, and that's a big issue, I would say, with many other apps, where when you install the app, you get this nice nag dialog. Do you want to give the app this and this and this permission? And do I really want to try this app? Yeah. And here it's rather safe. And what do progressive web apps provide in general? So you have a local caching, so you can use them offline. They have some kind of client-side proxy that enables that. You can have background execution and push notifications, so the app can, like web apps also can do, they can notify you if there are any interesting events, but they can also run in the background, which is usually restricted for normal websites. You can access local resources. It's very simple to provide updates, yeah, because you just you host the app, so to say, from a website, so you just update your website. Simple as that. And you have a standardized description language that you can use. And also, if you already maybe have a team of people who know how to write websites or write web applications, you can build on that knowledge because we are using basically the same well-known web app programming model. So, some pros of this. So, it's a unified approach, no generators, no code duplicates, and so on. It's easy to learn, as I said, especially if you already know something about web development. You don't have any additional effort for the publication. And it's also digitally sovereign. You have no dependency on any store providers, and the store provider says, oh, like we learned in the last talk, oh yeah, if your app is going to establish some network connections, oh, then we have to allow that, and then we have to look at, oh no, you are violating our policy. No, that's just up to you. You hosted basically on some website. And another good news is that while the support for progressive web apps was gone in Firefox for a while, as I learned yesterday when preparing the slides, it seems to have returned in 2025. So before you needed to install an add-on to use it, and now you can also use this natively again. However, there are also some disadvantages. So you have access to local resources, but it's somewhat limited. Also, the amount of local storage that you can use is limited. You have something like permission management, but it's more coarse granular that when compared, for instance, to native apps. And it's also difficult to make money with that, because you basically have no kind of payment interface, how you can charge money from your users, which is normally done by the app stores and so on. But for us, this was not relevant. It was not our goal to make as much money as possible, so this was not really a disadvantage for us. It only works in relatively modern browsers, so if you have some quite old device, so we tried it, I think, on a Nexus 6 or something, then the browser was too old to run it, at least with the outdated original operating system on the device. They still have no native look and feel, and for some applications, performance might be an issue, although performance in general, I would say, is quite good. So far about the progressive web apps, so that you understand on which technology we built here our app. And now let's dive into the domain. And unfortunately, my two colleagues that you have seen on the title slide couldn't make it here today. So I have to tell you something about goats. So if I get something wrong, please forgive me about that. So goats in general are mammals. Then they can have horns. Not all have horns. Some have, or most have. And they eat plants, and they are a big fan of, loops. So especially in the stomach, there are a lot of loops going on. They are not very small, so usually they are like 1 to 1.5 meters long. And most humans have a hard time carrying them around, because they weigh around 45 kilos when they are young, of course, to about 120. And they are used for landscape conservation, They eat grass. You don't need a grass trimmer. You have your goats, You can use them for milk production, or people also use them for meat. Now, what are problems that goat farmers typically face? One of the biggest problems are worms and parasites. So the worms and parasites, they live in the grass, and then when the goats eat the grass, the parasites get inside them, and then they start basically sucking the blood out of the goats. And here on the images you can see how this can look like, this thing here is basically the bad guy that is making our goats ill. One issue with that is that goats, they tell you very late that they are ill. Why? Because they are prey animals. So if there is a goat that already looks very ill, then there will be some animals, some birds, for instance, that will try to attack it because they see that it's weakened. So even if the goat is feeling really, really bad, it will try to hide it away as good as possible, which for you as the goat farmer has the problem that you walk around, you don't notice anything, and suddenly your goat is dead. So that's really a problem to timely diagnose these issues. So what solutions can we have there? Medication, yes, of course. However, there are some problems here. So if you do some underdosing, then the goats develop resistances against these medicines. and yeah, you have then losses in your herd because yeah, they don't get enough medication, or the resistance they develop is so strong. Then once they are really ill and you try to give them some antibioticum or something, they are resistant and it won't help. Also, overdosing is usually not a very good idea. You have to pay for the medicine, and also you contaminate the soil, yeah, because all the medicine they eat, they give it out away in the soil again, and then you have some kind of farm full of medicine, yeah, which is maybe also not the best idea. So if you dose your medicine correctly, then everything is fine, and yeah, it's so easy, right? Well, it would be great if it was as easy as that. Yeah. Unfortunately, the question is, how can you identify the animals that are worthy of treatment? What doses of which medicine do you give to, or do you administer to the animals? Yeah, and how do you keep a record about that? Yeah, so what is here basically required is some kind of medication history. You want to track the health data of your animals, and especially for calculating the doses of the medicine, you need to know the weight of the animals. So as some people are trying this with some kind of, let's say, paperwork chaos approach, this is not practicable. So as you can maybe already see here, it looks just like another scenario where computer science should come to the rescue and help the goat farmers with their information problems. So let's have a look at existing solutions in this space. And yeah, you can actually find some products that are proprietary and closed source. Some of them are not self-sufficient, so they only work if you have internet access, which, as I said, not only on the train stations in Germany can have some problems sometimes. And they also don't provide or fulfill all requirements that people have. So sometimes you can't evaluate the animal health data. Maybe they show you some data, but they don't help you with making decisions. And of course, they don't use any open interfaces because, oh, it's all ours, we won't tell you how this works. Yeah, and this is where we tried to make things better with our product. So let's start with the product vision and the timeline. So my colleague Katharina Lehnhardt and her husband, they had this idea like at the end of 2022, but they didn't really have a feasible plan how to realize it. Yeah? So they already thought, oh, it would be great if we could have an app or something like that. And then in the beginning of 2024, I joined the Bingen University of Applied Sciences. And yeah, you know, the colleagues welcomed me very warmly with, oh, you're the new computer science pro. Oh, you're the one we've been waiting for all the time. Look, we had the idea can you build this app for us? Yeah, and yeah, well, my answer was, yeah, here, for which platform do you want to have it built, and so on. And I said, okay, we can try that, but so to say, my terms here for this are that I'm not going to spend taxpayers' money to feed this healthy duopoly in the platforms that we see out there. So if we build an app, it has to be an app that runs on all platforms, especially on Linux Mobile. Yeah, so I said, no, that's because, you know, all work that, I mean, I'm paid by the state, so the work that I spent is basically taxpayers' money. Why should I use taxpayers' money to help some companies grow their duopolies? No. So, okay, we then looked how we can approach this. We did some student project where the students had to do some work on writing specifications for these apps. And then we had a master thesis where the algorithm that I will touch on later was developed. Then we had another round of specifications. And finally, we selected one of these specifications. And we, so at our university, we have some project where students have to build some software in some months and so on. So we found 7 students, and they were given the task to build the app. And no big surprise for me, maybe a surprise for my colleagues, it was that they really succeeded in doing that. And that at the beginning of this year, we had this first version of the app built. We published it on Codeberg, and we presented it also to the public. We were at the, I will show you later, at some event where we met some potential users for this app. And in between, we also spent a lot of time on other things, other rather unpleasant things. Maybe some people who work in science know that. You spend a lot of time writing some applications for grants. You write documents, 50, 60 pages or whatnot, and then your application gets rejected with no plausible argumentation and so on. And after we had also 2 of these grants rejected, I said, no, we're going to build this app anyways. We even thought about putting some logo like not sponsored by on the title page, but let's keep it politically correct. So our community vision here is basically like this. So we as the professors, so to say, try to make the scientific lead for the project. Then we have our student app developers, we have our end users, and of course we also have partners. Yeah, especially big thanks to our main partner, Streuobstziege, which is the business, so to say. Yeah, it's not really a full-time business, run by Katharina's husband, and also our other partners. So that's basically the idea, and all these would be connected here by this app. Then we decided to use the step model for development. I didn't translate this from the application here, I'm sorry. The idea here is that while we, so to say, develop the first version, and then the first version is in a state that it can be used in production, we already start with looking for requirements for the next version, implementing it, and then providing it so that, so to say, if we had a team that we could use all the time, they would be steadily busy, yeah, and not waiting for the next iteration to start. Yeah, so this is how we tried this, how we've done that. Now, yeah, let's look at the outcome and some experience, some learnings from that. So, regarding the technology, we have chosen, as I already said, to use progressive web apps, which might sound a bit, I don't know, maybe like something that nobody would be sure of. If I want to develop such an app with this functionality, is this really the proper technology? And this is also why I'm sharing it here, to show a bit what you can do with that, and maybe where the limitations are. We also used some frameworks, maybe some of you know them, Capacitor, Ionic, Vue.js, Tailwind CSS, and so on. So typical web stack, I would say, and also TensorFlow for image detection. Yeah, and this is also what was done, basically, and what is one of the main features of our app. Because, I don't know, probably none of you has ever tried to put a goat on a scale to compute its weight. As you can imagine, the goat is not like, I will stay here and wait. Yeah, no, it's really hard to convince the goat to stay there. And then especially small goat farmers, and most are quite, let's say, hobby businesses, that they have like 20 or 25 goats maybe. They can't buy a big scale that you have to transport with a trailer. It's really hard to put that scale out in the field because the ground is not very even and so on. And this really makes it hard to assess the weight of the goat. And if you don't have the correct weight, then you really run into this problem of using the wrong doses for the medication. So what we thought would be very helpful for them would be to assess their weight photographically. Making a picture of the goat, identifying the goat with some image detection techniques, identifying here the relevant measures, and then using an algorithm. Of course, you also need some more data. You need to know the distance where you stand to the goat. So we used a laser distance meter for that. And you also need to know from the camera of your device, typically your smartphone, you need to know the focus length, and then you can compute them all in the algorithm to see if you can estimate the weight. That was the idea here. So here in this work, only the algorithm was developed, and then, as I said, we had the student team who built actually the app. Here you can see this in real life, so to say. So you can have this weight tracking, not just one measurement, but you can track the weight over the time. And then if you see that, for instance, one of your goats loses weight quite fast over a short time, that may be an alarming signal for you. We also have some kind of digital animal file. So goats are not covered by the GPDR, so you can track their weight and so on without asking them for their consent. Medication history of the animals and so on. And some other non-functional characteristics of this work is also that it's available under the AGPL v3 license. It works on Linux Mobile, Android, and iOS. You can use it fully offline without a data connection. You only need a data connection once to install the app. And we have a backup and restore functionality using local files. Sounds quite simple. Of course, if you want to synchronize your local files with some data service that you have, you can do that, but it's not a must. Now, let's have a look at the app. So here I have a few screenshots, but maybe what is more interesting than these screenshots would be a demo, right? So, I thought how to do this. It's always not so easy. The main problem is that, we need a goat for that, basically, so I was talking here with the organizers if it was okay to bring a goat here to the conference, and they were, but finally I succeeded, and here we have this nice goat, and we want to see if we can, estimate the weight. Of course, it might be a bit off from the real data. I also brought some artificial grass here, so the goat will feel at home. I just have to make sure that I place it in a position that nobody gets on the picture, especially the people wearing the red lanyards. So, I'll just put it here, and we will come back to it later. It doesn't want to stand here on the table. By the way, maybe that could be a bit because I have a camera that is not so. We can try. So let's put it here. So. It was not feeling very well in my backpack all the time. Okay, so to show you this, I have some Where is my screen running? Here. So I have basically started the app here from my web browser. Yeah, and it's in German, so of course we have to change the language first to English. Okay, as easy as that. Yeah, now we could, I hope it's big enough to see it. Yeah, we could now add a new goat. Goats have all these ear tags, yeah, so they look like this. Normally you have them in the ear and they are a bit smaller. So 4 digits, 3 digits, 5 digits. Okay, let's call our goat FrOSCon maybe. Okay, then you have to pick the birth date. And that's of course the platform specific. Yeah, maybe it's a bit older already. Born before the FrOSCon. Okay. Origin, yeah, here you could put like the parent animal or something from it. Then you can select the breed. This was already a request from the community. Why do you only have 2 races here? We need more and so on. Then the gender. And yeah, we can also group them and so on. Now let's edit here. Now you can see here is our goat. And we can, yeah, track some data. And of course, we want to try the weight function. And for that, I have this webcam here. So let's see if, I think the distance could be a problem here, but we'll see. Yeah, and of course, I have to pay attention not to picture anybody in the audience. So, yeah, now let's select the goat, weight, and here we can say add. Oh no, this is manually. Okay, we normally would need to calibrate the sensor because the data probably won't be that valid. We will just skip that here. Yeah, and now it's loading the camera. And it normally should ask me for permission. No. Okay, then that's, I guess, the demo effect. Now I'm not sure why it doesn't work. Yeah, so normally, okay, so I'm sorry I can't show you this, but maybe somebody wants to try with their phone maybe. So you can just go to app.digiziege.de. As I said, you don't have to install it. And then normally you would see, yeah, now it comes, okay. Now we have to select the camera, give permission to it. Okay, and now I hope the application would be able to access it, yeah. So this is, by the way, running not installed. Yeah, you could install the app, then it would have more permissions. But here already you can see maybe that sometimes with these progressive web apps, things are not as, I think now it has remembered all my requests. Okay, now we have some picture. And let's see if we can. Okay, it's probably really a bit too far away. So I'll try to move it over here. Okay. I hope nobody with a red lanyard comes in now. Okay, now let's try. Okay, we have to confirm the picture. We have to show in which, we have to tell in which direction the goat is facing. The distance, yeah, maybe that was like 2 meters. And now, okay, it failed to load the model. Yeah, I can try once again. So normally after you install it as a progressive web app, you don't get these camera permission stuff here all the time. Let's try again. No. Okay, so I'm sorry for the effect. Normally it would now show the weight of the animal. And yeah, you can basically track that here for all your animals. You can also track temperature, weight. You have some diagrams for how this looks and so on. Okay, so then let's conclude the demo with this and go back to the presentation. So the question, of course, is where is my presentation? No. The question is are progressive web apps proper technology to implement a portable cross-platform app like that? Yeah, so you only have to write it once. And what are our learnings from that? So in general, all the features that we planned there, that also were requested by our partners, they were quite easy to implement with our bachelor students in the 4th or 5th semester. So this was quite good. The performance for the detection could be improved. So we didn't see it here in the failed live demo, but normally it takes like 2 or 3 seconds if the weight is the goat is recognized to compute the weight. So not the computation algorithm, but the image detection stuff. And yeah, if you would implement this natively, it would run a lot faster than if you run it in JavaScript in the browser. But we already have a follow-up project where we try to address this issue by using probably WebAssembly, so that we run these computation-heavy tasks in some compiled language like Rust, for instance, that runs in the browser via WebAssembly. And then, yeah, we only have the other part that runs then in JavaScript. Also, some end users, they had problems with installing the app. Yeah, so when we went there at the at this Goat Day, is called the event, I noticed that unlike here, a lot of people have an iOS device. Yeah, and yeah, the vendor made it just so easy to install a progressive web app. Of course, they have a big interest of people installing apps not from their store. Yeah, so it is doable. You just have to find the right buttons. And for us, this meant that we had to provide documentation how to install the app, like in each of the browsers. So if you look at our website, there is a documentation section where this is described, but it's really a bit sad that we have to describe this, while when you would install an app from a different store, then it's just so easy and wonderful, okay? Now, what feedback did we get from the users that first saw the app? It was quite positive. We even have some users already using our current version. It's version 0.5.0. Although it's an alpha version, yeah, we stick to semantic versioning and the zero signals you warning, yeah, but they are using it and it seems to work fine. There are some small bugs. One of the bugs is that we got the Famacha score wrong. So normally in the image with the eye, yeah, so you normally look how red is the eye. Yeah, and if the eye is very red, is the goat healthy or not? Who would say yes? Who would say no? And the majority is so wrong. Yeah, it's healthy because when the eye is quite white, then the animal has a problem because the parasites are sucking so much blood out of the animal that there is only few blood left in the eye. Yeah, so rather red eyes are good and rather white are bad. And yeah, we had it the other way around, and that's obviously an issue. Yeah, also it was a nice project to also yeah, show what we do in science and so on. And there are a lot of improvements that we want to do there. So the viewfinder that you saw here, we want to enhance it, because it's a really painful experience to make a picture, then say this, and then say, by the way, we didn't detect your goat, please try again later. We rather would like to have really a live viewfinder where you can directly see if this is going to be a good picture. Maybe ideally you would already see the computed weight in the viewfinder live. And this would be very interesting to know. Probably in like 5 months from now we will know, as I have a master thesis running that tries to solve exactly this problem. Another thing that we wanted to add is Bluetooth connectivity. So with progressive web apps you can also access Bluetooth. And many of these laser distance meters, both the rather expensive ones, and we also have some from the Far East for like 20 or 30 euros. They only cover distances up to, I think, 30 or 40 meters, but normally you would be, at 40 meters, you would be too far away to get the goat on the picture of your camera anyways. So the idea is that you don't have to enter the distance by hand after reading it from the display of the meter, but to transmit this wireless over Bluetooth. Then these ear tags that the goats wear, as you can imagine, you can read them with some proprietary software, very open protocol and everything. So no, it doesn't work. There is no open library for that. Maybe there is a way to do that. I think they don't even use RFID or something, but just some proprietary radio detection technique. So our idea was to just use image detection on the tags to identify the animals. We wanted to add some kind of wizard, so you can have some kind of step-by-step support for the let's say junior farmers out there, and maybe also a telemedicine interface. A big problem for goat farmers is also that nowadays we don't have that many how do you call the veterinary doctors, or veterinaries, and even if you have some animals that are ill, they have really a hard time to come there and see your animals. They have to drive very long distances, and it seems like a job that not so many people want to do. Maybe after the AI era is over, more people will try to do that. I don't know, but if you would have the ability to maybe diagnose some issues already remotely, that would be quite nice. There are some approaches for that, of course, again, with not so open protocols, but there are some chances that we see also with some cooperation with a person who is really doing this, and let's see. And we also thought a bit about adding really a multi-user operation also, so that it's not a single user application, but if you have many people to basically do the farming job together as a community, that they can all access the same data. You have some kind of synchronization. There are all these local first synchronization protocols and stuff that might be interesting to be looked into. So that just leaves me with the summary. So as I said, cross-platform development is something you typically want to do to avoid duplication of effort or only supporting few platforms or forcing people into unethical ecosystems. I talked a bit about the typical issues that farmers have, and also about progressive web apps. We looked quickly at the situation with the existing software. I introduced the project and the product and our planned improvements. And with that, I think I'm just finished in time. So thank you, and I welcome your questions.
So, thank you. Question? Yeah. You first.
Does the application also support thermal cameras, so it can automatically add the temperature data for the goats, or do you input it manually?
Yeah, so that's again another thing for the Bluetooth interface. Yeah, so for measuring the temperature, you could also, there are some like, for small children or something, some temperature meter that also have a Bluetooth interface. And this is also the idea. I have, I think, like 10 of them now in my office waiting for a student to take the work to make them basically work in our app. And the idea is that we use these temperature meters also over Bluetooth to read the data. But at the moment, it's very manual. So you have to use some external device and then manually input the data in the app. Yeah. Yeah.
How accurate is the algorithm?
How accurate is the algorithm? Usually, so from what we experienced, if you have your sensor calibrated correctly, that's a very important prerequisite. It's about 5 to 10% off from the real weight. Yeah, and my colleagues, they spent a lot of effort in making these pictures of the goats on their farm to train basically our detection model and so on. But so there are some factors like, for instance, a high grass that makes it hard to detect the legs of the animals and some other things. But if you have a, let's say, more or less good view and not the worst camera, then it's about 5% maybe. Yeah.
And that's enough for calculating the correct doses?
Maybe it's not that perfect, but my colleagues, they have looked into studies. So there are some studies how correct or accurate the weight estimates are that the farmers do themselves. So since they lack a scale, or some big farms might have the option to have some gate where all the goats have to go through with a scale, but most don't have that. And most of them are, I think, like 20 or 30% off. And that's really an improvement. And the other thing is that they also, they don't really keep a track record, which animal was already medicated, when, and so on. And this is also what they could know from using our app. Yeah.
So, who's next?
Yeah.
Do you have enough farmers testing your app?
Yeah, enough is always relative.
Are you looking for more?
We are looking for more, definitely, yeah. So we have some, and also there will be a big goat event next week.
Next week?
Next week, yeah. It's in the around Gießen, in the area. You know it?
Yeah.
Oh, then we'll see there.
My wife will be
cool.
at the event.
Then we have to talk after this presentation, yeah.
Okay.
No, but so definitely we are looking for more users to test that, and also it's a really interesting experience to go on such a goat day. The people are just so different that FrOSCon people, yeah. So it's a totally new experience. Okay, more questions.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe two brief questions. One, I was wondering that you have to input the direction manually. That's one. Could be implemented that, and the other one is it is maybe an idea to make averages from multiple pictures of a goat to get a more
like something like some kind of HDR mode or something like making. So I think this is also what is done already in the app. I'm not 100% sure, but at least we had the plan to do that, to make multiple pictures and then from them make like one. And but this is also usually already something that the firmware of the cameras sometimes does itself. Yeah, but it would be an idea to make several pictures, or also if you don't get the angle right, so my vision a bit in this direction, and this is also what we want to test in the ongoing master thesis, is that instead of maybe making a picture, could we make a video? And then from the video, you select just some images and you try to automatically detect the image that is most plausible to be a good source for using the algorithm for computing the weight on it. Yeah, so I think there's a huge space of possibilities that can be explored there. Yeah,
that opens another possibility for tracking the movement of the goats and deduce from that how well they are.
From analyzing the movement, we didn't really think about that. Probably it's a bit too far, so we always try to make small steps and make it work. But this would be definitely interesting to see if there. So I mean, some people I think try this on humans, to see how healthy humans are from tracking their movements and so on. And here at least we don't have the GPDR issue, but. It could be an idea, but I think we need to do the first steps first, and then if we already have a quite well working and also easily usable solution, then definitely it would be interesting to extend on that. Yeah, thanks.
So we have some time left for questions. Okay.
So have you worked with a biology department or so for more cues as what is considered a healthy animal or not?
Myself, no. No, but this is also what we applied for in these grants, to really track the health with making various probes of the animals, like a clinical study, so to say, over a longer period. And this is something that, you really need the money for, and we would hire some assistants to do this. But the grants that we tried were rejected, unfortunately. And maybe with the working app, it's worth another try to convince them to invest in that. Yeah.
Okay. So, any more questions? Okay.
Oh, that's one in the back. Yeah.
So you try to make like video detection, right? So how well it will run on the old hardware if totally run on local?
Sorry, I didn't get that. How?
Yeah, because you say you're gonna make in the improvement, you're gonna make like video detection. So it will cost a lot on the old hardware. So how well is currently running on the old hardware?
How well is it running on old hardware? Yeah, pretty well. Yeah, so as our test devices, I got from some former colleague at our university here. He had some old Nexus 6 phones and things like that we were using. They are like, I don't know, 10 or 12 years old. Yeah, and it was running really well and smooth. So it's really, I mean, it also runs on some very dated laptops in the browser, so it's really, you can try it yourself. Just go to appdigiziege.de and see if, with any old device. So if you use some Linux mobile device, the main issue there is usually camera support, because many devices don't have. So if they have camera support, often they don't have, or they lack the autofocus. And then, of course, you can't make a suitable image, or you would connect some external webcam and try it this way. Maybe this would work, but otherwise, but the app itself, it's really very, the resource needs are very low. So maybe if somebody still has some, I don't know, OpenMoko device, they can try, but probably on that it won't run, but on any, I don't know, Galaxy S3 or something, it should be no problem.
So, thank you again.